I can only look at that and think that's kind of a wise thing to do. But I don't know, Dave and Elsa, supposing the worst happens and there is some police brutality, how do you think you would handle that with having your kids there, and how do you think they would handle that?
Right. That was our big issue, was that, will there be that violence that might strike up, not so much from the people but from the police officers, because that just seems to be the case, or just from somebody who isn't there for the right reasons. So that's what kind of was weary to us about taking the girls, because we didn't want something to happen where they would have to see that kind of violence. So we're still kind of on the fence about it, and I think if we did go, it may just end up being Dave and I, and coming back and talking to the girls about the experience. Madhavia is very aware of what's going on, and I think part of her kind of gets excited about it because she sees that mom and dad talk about it a lot, and what we think about it. And of course, she's still young enough to think that mom and dad are right, and that what mom and dad say it makes sense, So I think it may just end up being Dave and I, just because Southern California in protests always seem to get a little out of hand. So we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, I think from a safety standpoint, your children would be fine, but there are things like the wild cards that you can never really predict. Like the way the police will react, or that one guy that is not into being a peaceful protester.
Right.
So Caleb and Tegan, what do you think you were expecting, if anything, when you went up there this weekend?
You want to go first, Hartman?
Sure. I was expecting probably about half the people to know why they were there and what they were protesting, and about half the people to just kind of treat it like a festival. And I was actually pretty surprised at the amount of people who did know why they were there and what was going on, and had valid suggestions to fix it. I expected more police enforcement, which didn't really happen until the end. Yeah, I guess that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I'll agree with Tegan. That's pretty much what I went into it thinking. As I was surprised with the amount of dialogue that was happening in the camp prior to the march.
Yeah.
I was surprised by the organization. I was surprised by a lot of things. I was expecting it to be just a lot less organized, and I was expecting to kind of be disappointed by the people there, and I wasn't.
Yeah, I was pretty impressed, actually, with how everything was going.
Yeah, incredible organizational skills for a movement that has no leaders. Everybody that showed up, I think, just showed up knowing that they were going to have to help, and that's what we did.
Now, when you went up there, you joined a movement that initially started with about 1,000 people, grew to about 2,000, and then the time that you were there, when you arrived, there was about 500, and then the next day, that quickly became 5,000, and so clearly there are a small number of people who are dedicated to actually occupying on a daily, nightly basis, and then there's pretty much, it seems like, the rest of society that supports this, but really cannot let go of certain obligations, so they show up for a day or however long they can be there. So who did you see as far as the demographics? Were you seeing the majority of the people that were there were young 20-somethings? Were you also seeing adults from maybe your parents' generation? Describe the types of people that you saw there.
The people that were actually occupying the camp were definitely like 20-somethings, and a lot of them seemed like the kind of like tour kids, like kids that just travel aimlessly and go to festivals. Not that they were all that, just that the general appearance of travelers. But yeah, most of them were in their 20s, early 30s. As the day progressed into the march, you got a lot. The diversity grew a good bit, and we had teachers. There was a teachers union showed up. Iron workers. There was a construction worker from Boston that I talked to. Veterans, both homeless and not homeless. Yeah, every nationality that you could think of. There were people wearing suits. There were people that just got off work. There were people that just showed up after getting a latte and said, "What's this?" I mean, and stayed. You know, when we were marching, there were people that would come in from the other side of the street that were just watching, that figured out what it was about and joined us.
There's a lot of support from the businesses, you said, too.
Yeah, a lot of support from local businesses. It was around midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, and we were all soaked and very cold. And Matthias went out for something, and there was a cafe had donated like something like 120 cups of tea and coffee. So there's just tons of support from all the businesses.
And even, I know the cops were there doing their job, but even amongst the blue collar cops, we had support, even though they were there for a different reason. It seemed like not all of them, but a bunch of them supported what we were doing.
Yeah, there were a lot of cops that during the day they were smiling, they were talking to people if they came up and talked to them, they were just talking to each other and kind of hanging out, you know, prepared to do their job, but they weren't having a bad time. When Tegan and I were leaving the incident on the bridge after the march, the cop that had moved the gate they created back for us to pass actually smiled and said, "Good job, keep doing what you're doing." So I mean, there's just support from everywhere for this.
Yeah, the all-inclusive nature of it is very apparent with all of the people that and organizations that you had mentioned, as well as pilots, and most recently, today actually, it was reported that over 100 NYPD police officers have refused to go to work in solidarity with the Occupy movement.
That's
wow.
Awesome.
I didn't know that. That's great.
So it really is an all-inclusive thing, and very much what seems to me to be a movement that was inspired by desperation, but also born out of love. Because from what I'm hearing from every one of you that reported, it seems like there really is a lot of love involved in the community that you're a part of when you go there. Is that not true?
Absolutely true. I didn't feel like we were in the middle of New York City, and there wasn't a single time that I felt threatened.
Yeah.
We left our camp with all of our stuff there all day, except for the backpacks that had our stuff we needed.
Yeah, I mean, we were smart with our stuff. We took the important stuff with us, but like we had tarps and blankets and stuff that we just left behind, and they weren't bothered at all.
Which would have been valuable at
that
point. Yeah, like I didn't feel threatened at all whatsoever. Everyone there was really supportive of each other and helpful to each other.
Yeah, at one point Matthias walked back to our pile of tarps and blankets that we had stuck under a table, and there was a guy sitting there wearing his jacket, and Matthias just said, "Hey, I just wanted to ask if you'll put that back when you're done with it," and sure enough, the guy put it exactly as we had left it.
Nice.
And he was done. So I mean, it's that kind of atmosphere. There was a kid that got hypothermia the morning after we were there because we weren't allowed to build any kind of shelters, and he had been soaked and unable to do anything about it. And he looked like the kind of kid that was on tour, you know, the kind of kid that he was probably a little underprepared, but he also probably had nowhere to really go. And you know, that's my assumption, of course. But as soon as it was apparent something was wrong with him, there was a large group of people helping him out.